The Republican
Yeah, and let me
leader.
just reiterate what the senator from South Carolina just said, and that is that this measure that we passed does indeed give important protections to members. And I think it's an important defense of separation of powers. It protects Democrats and it protects Republicans alike from a weaponized Department of Justice that is pursuing political enemies. The measure was never meant to enrich senators. It's always been true under our rules that members wouldn't keep damages they recover under this measure. And so I would hope that we can work together to pass a resolution to reflect what's always been true and what I've been saying all along, and that is that this measure is about accountability and not profit. And so, Mr. President, I have a unanimous consent request. I would ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the consideration of this resolution, the one at the desk. Further, that the resolution be agreed to and the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate. And Mr. President, what this would simply do is it would preserve the important elements of this, which I think are critical to the protection of the Article I branch of the government constitutionally, and but address the question that has been raised about personal enrichment, which I have said, again, is not the case here. This would clarify that any damages awarded under this law would be forfeited to the United States Treasury. So no individual senator could benefit. Now that's the case. That was the case before, but this would clarify that. And it seems to me, at least, if you want to address the concern that's been raised by the senator from New Mexico about senators trying to get hundreds of thousands of dollars out of the Justice Department or the federal government, the taxpayers, this would address that by simply saying that anything that is awarded, settlement that's awarded under this statute, would be forfeited to the United States Treasury. But it would preserve the important protections that are in place under the statute when it comes to members' personal information. I happen to think, and that was what animated this, that individual senators, members of the Article I branch of our government, should not be subject to a weaponized Department of Justice or prosecutors who go around the law. And so this strengthens the law and ensures that in the future that doesn't happen. And so it's in my view, again, something that protects this institution, something that protects individual senators, and the unanimous consent request that I'm offering here would clarify in the form of a resolution that would apply to the Senate. And by the way, this only applied to the Senate. Now, frankly, there's a good argument that if I'm a member of the House of Representatives, I would want the same protections that are included here. But that wasn't the case. When we drafted this, it was in response to a statute that covered the Senate only. So this specifically applies to senators, and this resolution that I'm offering here and asking unanimous consent for would clarify, make crystal clear, that any damages awarded as a result of claims brought under this statute would be forfeited to the United States Treasury and not be allowed for an individual member to take advantage of. So just to be clear, no personal enrichment, accountability, and I think protection for the Article I branch of our government, which in my view, based on what we saw and what we're seeing as the facts continue to come in into the Arctic frost investigation, there was clearly a violation of the law and a law that needs to be strengthened and clarified so those protections are in place for future members of the United States Senate. And again, I would argue someday probably members of the House are going to want that same protection. So that is my request, Mr. President, that the resolution be agreed to, the resolution at the desk that makes that clear, and the motion to reconsider be considered made, laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Sure.
Yeah, Mr. President, and I would simply respond by saying again that clarifying this question of personal enrichment, I'm not sure exactly what that's predicated on. Clearly, the attempt was being made to give standing to members whose personal, private information was collected by a prosecutor that went around the law. The law requires notification when a United States senator, when their personal information is acquired. And what happened was the prosecutor threatened legal action if the carriers who were collecting this data on individual senators, if they did provide the notice that was required under the law. The prosecutor clearly went around the law. And so I just believe for a future of protection not only of this institution but of individual United States senators, it's going to be critical that we codify some of these protections in ways that aren't currently covered in the law. And as I said before, if there's some question about the monetary judgment that might come or the damages that might be awarded, this is what we're attempting to clarify right now. And that is no individual member would, and frankly, that's already true under our rules, but this would further clarify that. But if the senator from New Mexico is interested in amending or modifying this in some fashion that preserves or retains the protections on individual members' data, which frankly, as I said before, I think it's a really important protection, not just for this United States Senate, but for United States senators in the future. I think there's a willingness to be able to address that. But I think, again, the suggestion that somehow this was a bunch of United States senators who are trying to figure out a way to enrich themselves at the taxpayer's expense just is completely unfounded and inconsistent with the facts.